Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today, we have a special guest. We have Ashely Kruempel, who is the female founder, and she's also an accidental entrepreneur who's building an ed tech startup through social impact branding. So we're going to learn all about what she's doing to operate in the startup world. So let's give a warm welcome to Ashely. So Ashely, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, definitely. So what's your background? As it's not very often you hear someone use the term accidental entrepreneur.
You're right. Absolutely. And, I think the fact that I have zero corporate experience is what makes me kind of fall into that accidental bracket. Well, I've kind of that untraditional background. I started my college career right after high school at Arizona State, where I majored in mixology, like a lot of my fellow millennials. And, we kind of drank a little bit, and I didn't graduate traditionally on that end. So it was when I came back and I met my husband. We started having children. I picked up my college career back up, and I started doing night school. And I did that for over 5 years. And I served throughout that time period. And I was bartending and waitressing. And I graduated with my bachelor's when I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter, my third child, who's now 2. And when I got to the time when school started, I joined LinkedIn, and I started filling out my profile and applying to jobs left and right. And I blogged about this the entire time, for the first time ever in blogging, direct on LinkedIn. And I would share my experiences that I was having in the job search process and in the interview process. And to my surprise, I have a very outgoing personality, and to my surprise, there I was, 7 weeks in, 70 applications out, and I couldn't even get an interview. And I thought, well, this isn't right. So I took a little break around Christmas time. When I came back, I changed my approach, and I started what I called personal branding. And so I really would get out, and I would meet with anybody and everybody who lived or worked in the Minneapolis area where I wanted to work. And what I learned really was actually a lot more about myself, first off, and second was kind of how screwed up the system was and the process. And I blogged about this direct on LinkedIn, and I had a lot of engagement from it. And so fast forward about 6 weeks, I had grown my network from 600 to over 3,000, and I had 150 messages in my inbox. I was in the top 1% of viewed profiles on LinkedIn, and I realized that this was just from being myself and sharing the truth of how it was.
Wow. Now, that's incredible, because you really discovered something important there, and that was about being yourself. It wasn't about being someone else. It was showing up in an authentic fashion.
100%. It was exactly the moment that I decided to not try to fit into a box and just be myself, that people were flocking to it, and my messages were just going up and up and up.
Oh, excellent. And that's so key. Like, you have to figure out what that one thing is you do, which changes so much, because then people start seeking you out instead of you're trying to hunt everyone down and you're getting zero responses. Exactly.
I mean, people were asking how I was booking these meetings and how I was getting these referrals and why these people wanted to meet with me and how I was having all these coffee dates. Because when I started in LinkedIn, I was hashtagging on LinkedIn, which was absolutely had zero effect. You couldn't link anything to it. It was more just for visual. So it was first week of job search, 2 weeks of job searching, 3 weeks of job searching, into my 4th week of job searching, because my posts were always very optimistic and positive. Even though I wasn't having luck, people started to kind of just remember them or keep note. And then when they switched from weeks of job search to weeks of personal branding, that's when I started saying I had an amazing cup of coffee today with so-and-so from this company. And, I would be very, very honest And I was writing on there how it's messed up that here I am coming out of college with all these different skills in sales and marketing and advertising. But yet when I would go in and apply for one of those roles, they looked at me like I was insane because they were too dispersed or too far apart. You know, you have to narrow it down. You have to pick one.
Right.
And I would say, well, why? I have skills for all three. And, you know, so then that's what I would blog about. And people really kind of started to flock to it. So it was at that point, it was President's Day weekend, when I realized, holy moly, I have over 3,000 connections on LinkedIn. And I haven't busted more than 20% of them. And,
right.
You know, an inbox with 150 messages, what can I do with this? And that's when Social Impact Branding, the company, was born.
So how did you start leveraging LinkedIn to grow your business? Because so many people, they're on it and they're like, okay, I have connections. Now what?
Oh, I think LinkedIn is such a little hidden charm. People overlook it and think that it's not valuable, but it is so valuable if you use it personally. You know, I would look for people who were working at companies that I wanted to work at and see, you know, who they were interacting with. And I had to make sure that I was finding people who were active on LinkedIn. Because if they weren't active on there, well, then if I sent them a message, odds were they weren't going to see it anyway. So I would find people that were active and I would, you know, just say, hey, I love what you're doing. I think that your role sounds amazing. Would you be interested in a cup of coffee, you know, whenever you have time free? And people absolutely love to say yes. I really didn't find many people that said no to me unless they hadn't seen it or, you know, they were traveling. But it was amazing how many people would love to tell you how they got to where they are. I mean, it's just like this situation. Wow. People love to talk about themselves, right?
Well, of course. You know, it's one of those things that if you ever read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, that's one of the points of discussion.
It's one of my favorite books.
It's a great one. If people haven't read it, they definitely have to pick it up. Mm-hmm. So you started conversing with people then. Then what happened?
Well, then I have this positive attitude. And so what happened was people started deciding, well, you know, I can't fit you in here, but you would be great in this company. And so then they were referring me to different people. And then when I would go in, they would say, wow, you know, honestly, I'm so impressed with your profile. I should have you do mine. And I thought, wow, look at that. So I started kind of leaking out these little tips and tricks. And I started telling people and explaining to people what I was doing to get where I was going. And people loved it. And that's kind of when I discovered Snapchat. And I really took to Snapchat because I figured if I can reach these business professionals on LinkedIn so easily, who can I reach on Snapchat, considering it's such a fast-capturing millennial marketplace? And so using these same kind of strategies that I did with LinkedIn, I found a lot of people on Snapchat. And it wasn't within 2 weeks that I was snapping with Chris Sacca, the founder of Uber. Which, granted, the conversation was not very productive. But point being, I had an open line of communication with him. And so I used Snapchat from there to really just discover and learn as much as I could about other professionals that were in this social media marketing world. And it wasn't long after that the idea for the Global Snap Swap movie came about. And it was in a conversation that I was having with a gentleman in Australia when I had to leave and I had to go to the gas station. And I said, well, I'm just going to take you with me. And he was like, wow, this is so cool. It's like I'm right there with you. And I said, well, you know, I wonder, we could probably do something even cooler with this. And so I created this initiative for the Global Snap Swap movie to get 50 different countries. And within a week, too, I scheduled this for May 1st because I thought, oh, how fun. It'll be May Day, you know, the fresh new beginning. And so within this time period, I was able to gather 30 different countries, and they each took over my channel for, you know, about 10, 15 minutes to give a first perspective, a first eye view of where they were at in the world. And so at the end of this, you're left with 120 minutes of film that's essentially a personalized trip around the world from the palm of your hand. It's amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, that's amazing. So what was the impact of that?
Well, the impact of that was, I mean, I guess, I don't know, you'd have to be a little bit more specific, because on me personally, it really kind of gave me the foundation to grow relationships with many people from around the world, which is why I say that my startup is a global startup, because I have this global presence already. In regards to society, unfortunately, you know, I don't have the kind of marketing or advertising budget that some other people have, so I wasn't able to quite make a global viral impact, but I feel like it's still coming, that once more people hear about it, it will catch on.
Right. Well, and you have to think about something. Everything starts off as a ripple, and it grows from there. If you think that in terms of influencing, if you drop a small rock in one side of the ocean, the energy that from that, what does it turn into later? It turns into a full-blown wave as it builds up momentum. So anything is possible. It's just a matter of how you look at it.
Right? And that's how I like to think of it, too, is that there's no done. There's only, you know, not happened yet. And there is no can't. There's only how can I. And, you know, just the persistence and the perseverance will get me there, I think. So.
Right. So it sounds like you've truly leveraged LinkedIn and Snapchat in your business.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So now,
in fact,
with LinkedIn,
my first client came through Snapchat. My first two clients. Yeah, my very first two official clients. One was in Washington and one was in New York. So I thought that was pretty interesting that here I was, just a small town girl in Minnesota with clients on each side of the continent.
Right. Now, obviously, if you've been using Snapchat for business, how have you been doing that? Because you have two thoughts that people have. One is Snapchat, like, oh, that's worthless, just a bunch of people showing food and whatever else. And then you have those like, oh, yeah, nailing clients. How are you doing that?
I love Snapchat. I am such a huge fan of it. I think that people overlook it so much. And I think society as a whole is about to get, you know, Snapchat right in the face. Because when I looked at it first off, I realized that it's like email marketing in the late 90s. You can get everybody who's on Snapchat. If you're looking for anybody who's under the age of 35, they have Snapchat. And 9 times out of 10, they open their Snap. So you have this direct line of access if you have the right opening line. You know, the thing about Snapchat is that you can't go on there and expect to sell. I think the best way to sell your product is to absolutely not sell your product. Just to be there and to be present. So by going on and creating these organic relationships and just truly being interested in what they were doing and how they were doing it, you're able to kind of create this open line of communication, which then turns into, well, what do you do? And then it turns into a longer conversation, which then turns into 2 referrals or a business call on Monday.
Oh, excellent. So what type of content do you end up sharing on a regular basis? Because, you know, you hear some people, they're sharing, like I said, food, and then some people are sharing things with their cats and so on. But what is it that's making you magnetic to people?
Well, I think it's because I share my journey. What I always share on Snapchat is, you know, I'm Ashely, I'm an accidental entrepreneur, follow my journey as I grow, and I also have 3 kids, which kind of makes me a little bit real. But what I share is me going to these networking events and me meeting new people, showing new technology that's coming about in Minneapolis, showing people what it's like to engage and kind of bring the digital world into real life. So when I'm in Minneapolis and I'm at some of these networking events and they see me, because one of the things that I do is I made myself a name tag and it happens to have my Snap code on it, which is great for an eye catcher for other people to say, oh, what is this? What do you do on Snapchat? It's a great way to open up conversation. But also when I'm at these events and I want to include the audience in my Snapchats, they're much more open to it. So I get to show them and show my audience, here's a look at somebody real, look at what she did, and I'll capture them kind of spur of the moment, and I'll just say, hey, tell my Snapchat people how you created this. And so there's no time for people in real life to be like, well, what's a Snap? What are you going to do with that? It's just answer the question. She's got a phone in your face. So if you don't give them time to worry about it, they're almost more apt and more excited to be in it. So it's just kind of how you approach people, I think.
Right. Everything's always about the approach when you look at it. It's when you show up the right way, you can attract the people that you really want. And that's what makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely.
And more important... Oh, go ahead.
Well, another thing that I think is really important to grow and to keep your audience engaged on Snapchat is doing Snapchat takeovers. So a lot of the people who I've met who've made an impact on my professional career, I'll ask them to do a Snapchat takeover. And so that's when they will come onto my account for the day and they'll share whatever it is they're doing. Or like, for example, Justin Wu, the hackapreneur, did a takeover on my account. And what he always shows is ways that he hacks his growth hacking. So little shortcuts and sidelines and ways that he gets around things. So that my audience is like, oh, cool, Ashely. First off, how did you meet him? How did you know him? And second off, I'm going to follow him now. Now I have 2 people that are going to impact me that I can follow. Who's it going to be next? So keeping your audience engaged and learning, that's what my audience is there for. So that's why I don't snap a lot of food. Because, I eat like ramen noodles anyway. Who wants to see that?
Right. I think everybody has something that's exciting as part of their life. Now, let's expand more about this Snap takeover, because for some people who are not familiar with the platform, like a Snap what?
Yeah, right.
What is it? How do you set it up? And like, what's been some of the benefits of doing it?
Sure. Well, a Snap takeover is where either one person or both parties will have the opposite person take over their Snapchat channel. So the way that it's set up is literally you just change your password and you give the other person your password. There's some security protections that you can do, like a 2-step login, or, where you have to add your text message code to make sure that your account stays safe. But I think when you're doing these Snapchat takeovers, generally they're with somebody who you've already got a relationship with. So you know what their intent is and you know what their purpose is. Like, for example, Jeannie Cabrera. She's a wonderful Snapchat artist, and she does all things Snapchat for business. And right before I went in to give a Snapchat for business presentation, she took over my Snapchat channel and gave people a new perspective of what it's like to have Snapchat for business. So in this takeover, you can see that, she's in, you'll have to forgive me, this woman travels all over the world nonstop. She was in somewhere very nice and warm, Cancun, I think, or somewhere. And she's talking about the same things that I'm talking about, which gives us synchronicity. And so it gives my audience something to, put foundation onto, that this is actually something that's legitimate to them. But she's talking about the same things, bringing in my name to it and saying, I hope that you guys are excited and you guys are going to see how valuable Snapchat can be when used as a business tool. And so then for me to share that at the beginning of my presentation with my audience in real life, again, was just a way to connect digital to real life to personal perspective. So any way that you can kind of connect those dots is when it makes sense to your audience and it gives them value.
Right. So how did you start building your audience? Because, when you think about it, people they go on different networks. They're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they have their friends and such. Yeah. But for some people, like another network, and they're like, I don't want to start off with 0 connections and build that up again.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, there's actually some very relevant third-party tools that you can use. And this was important to me because I was growing my business, so prospecting was something that I was going to be doing with my time anyway. So it made it easier for me to start a new platform and not be frustrated to grow from the ground up. But there's one app that's called Ghost Codes. And like, ooh, ghost, Ghost Codes. And what it is it's a discovery app for Snapchat that categorizes users under industry level and keyword interest. So I was able to go through and surf through people under the business category and then add them by Snapchat code or, decide to pass over them. Now, one of the things that I love the most about Ghost Codes is that it's like a one-click digital resume for anybody who's anybody. And the reason that I say that is because, if you're not online today, you're almost like you don't exist. That's how we check people, to see if they actually are who they say they are. And if you're in the social media world, being able to check each one of their social profiles with one-click access was extremely valuable. So what I mean is, if you go onto Ghost Codes and you click on a person, underneath their picture, you'll find little circles of all of their social media profiles that they have linked. Now, it's their choice how many and which ones they link, but for the people like myself who link all 8 of their profiles, meaning Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, all of these, you're able to go through and surf through them and see the consistency between each. So when I would go and I would check people who say, I'm this huge, vlogger, and I take daily vlogs every day, and this is the most important thing in my life. And then you check their Instagram and their Facebook that's completely null and not active. And then you look on their YouTube channel, which, has no art or anything. You're like, wow, this person isn't really who they say they are. So then you go to the next person and you see vlogger, and you see that their Facebook has 3,000 people on it and 10 posts just from today. You go over to their Instagram and you can see that, they're on there daily. And then you go to LinkedIn and you can see that they're writing and publishing articles on LinkedIn about vlogging. This just goes to prove that this person is who they say they are, or is most likely who they say they are, which means then they are worth my time, which then I will download their snap code and I will snap them directly and say, hey, what up? My name is Ashely.
Now, that is a powerful tip in itself, because for so many people, because, you look at a lot of fakers out there, using little air quotes here, that you have people who they say one thing, but their message, just like you said, says something totally different. I've seen people like you, like, wait, you don't even have a cover art on your YouTube channel? What's going on?
Exactly. I just want to make sure that I'm using my time most diligently, and so I want to vet out my prospects to make sure that they're actually worth my time. And so Ghost Codes was an invaluable tool for me. I mean, really. Because being able to just click, yep, good, download, and then move on, it was able for me to do this very quickly, and, I don't know, just good.
Right. It's all about the speed of implementation, so how quickly you can be able to position yourself in front of people, and that way it's just a quick check, because we all want to make sure that when people are making those decisions of who to learn from online, that they're doing so from somebody that's reputable. Just to put it in perspective, I've seen ads on Facebook before where someone's saying, "I'm going to show you how to leverage Facebook to promote your business." Yet, if you look at their page on Facebook, other than running ads, they haven't actually did a real post on their page in 6 months. Exactly.
That's not going to be worth my time, because you're not actually going to be who you say you are. And the other thing that really, really gets me is the amount of MLMs out there now. And I'm all for people making money. I'm all for that. But the way that the MLM system is set up in a general aspect makes it so easy for anybody to go on there and resell somebody else's success story as their own. Which, if you're going to resell me your body's success story, well, when I have a question about it, you're going to be absolutely no help. And that's what I don't want to have happen.
Right, exactly. There's a time and place for showing, hey, this is a system that works, but at the same time, people want to know what your story is.
Exactly.
Share your journey, saying, hey, I'm getting started with this, that I'm on this weight loss journey, I'm at XYZ weight, I'm going to get down there, so you're going to follow me along as I do this, come join me, versus saying, look at all these other people. Sure, that might have been one thing that they were doing, but what else were they doing?
Well, and I think the authenticity of being real is attractive as well, because it's one of the reasons I think I've had success on Snapchat. Not only have I been able to reach out and prospect through Snapchat, but I've been able to be myself and be authentic and receive help from my audience where I didn't necessarily have to ask for it, because it was just offered. So like when I'm having a problem with my email drift and I put a snap up that says, I swear to God, I'm going to throw this monkey out my window, all of a sudden I have 5 responses saying, hey, I can help you figure out how to do MailChimp.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's all about, like you think about it, when you're genuine and authentic with people and you ask for help, it's amazing how many people say, sure, I'll give you a hand for that. And they don't want anything in return. They just want to see you succeed.
Absolutely. That's 115,000% the truth. They really do.
Right. Because when you add value, people love that. They want to make sure that you can keep doing it. The difference comes into play when you see the people that they never want to add value. Like, oh, can you please help me? Like, wait, you haven't added anything to my life, so why should I add something to yours?
Exactly.
You have to give before you can receive. So, because you're using Snapchat so much, how many times are you snapping per day? Because some people are probably thinking, like, oh my gosh, if I have to spend another, hour on another platform, I'm going to go nuts.
Well, and I don't blame them. I really don't, because although here I am telling you how amazing Snapchat is and how much success I've had from it, in my, last week or two, honestly, my participation and engagement on Snapchat has been bare none. And it's almost like a catch-22 here, because now I do have clients. I do have business. I have a lot of business coming in. In fact, I have so much that I can hardly keep up, which leaves zero time for Snapchat, which breaks my heart, to tell you the truth. It's like I want to schedule in more time, because at the peak of it, I was snapping, at least 20 plus times a day to my storyline. But whether I'm snapping it to my storyline or not, the key there is to be engaging with your audience. So if I had 20 snaps on my storyline, I probably had about 200 snaps going on behind the scenes that day with 8 to 10 other people. And that's the engagement that actually is what's going to provide value. So for how I was using the tool to prospect, it took a lot of time. But that's not the only way that you can receive value from Snapchat. What I've learned now, as I'm starting to try to learn better how to delegate my time, is that I can include my Snapchat audience on things by inviting them elsewhere through my Snap story. So what I mean is I'll still try to snap at least, 4 to 5 times a day just to show a little bit of what I'm doing. But I'll oftentimes say, hey, I'm scheduling a Periscope at 1:30. I hope I'll see you guys there. Or I'll invite them over to my Facebook Live and let them know beforehand that, hey, I'm going to do a Facebook Live on this conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Because then, of course, it's much easier to engage with an audience, via comments on a Facebook Live all in one spot versus through Snapchat throughout the day.
Right. And that's an important principle, is getting that engagement, getting people to go deeper with the relationship on more than just one platform. Because if you think about it with Snapchat, it's that instant. You're getting those little snaps, no pun intended, of someone's life.
Yeah.
But you want to pull them in so they can see that longer engagement on Periscope or on Facebook Live.
Absolutely.
Get them into seeing what you're doing. So they get to know more of you as a person. Like, oh my gosh, you were at such and such place. Oh, I love there.
Absolutely.
So it's all that process.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, people say, well, I don't understand how you make money through Snapchat. And I say, I don't make money through Snapchat. I make leads on Snapchat, and then I close them in my business, or wherever. I don't. Snapchat is used for communication solely. And it's a window into my life and a window into their life. And the key is taking them elsewhere.
Right, exactly. People tend to forget about that you ultimately have to pull people off of a particular network so they start making those decisions and getting them onto your email list.
Absolutely. And I think it's easier to invite people into your other platforms on Snapchat versus, trying to find them one by one. Like if I just, invite all of them to come to where I am, then I have all of them right there because they've all added me. If I say, I'd love to connect with you outside of this platform and start getting private messages, well, then I have to do a search and then I have to find and then add. And, it's not as easy as when people are coming to you as when you have to go find them. So, and then you're also able to use your Snapchat you can share like what I was doing a lot to drive in viewers is I would share on Twitter my Snapchat code, and I would say, I'm snapping from the Minneapolis Digital Summit today. Come and see behind the scenes. And so by putting that on Twitter 3 or 4 times throughout the day, I was gathering, 4 or 5 users each post because they were at the Digital Summit. So it's just using those different platforms to leverage people into one place.
Right, exactly. Because there's people out there who they're on one platform primarily, but if you invite them someplace else, they'll join you there.
Absolutely, especially if it's pertinent to them or what they're doing, then absolutely they will.
Right, and that's, I think, is the biggest key. You have to look for ways to consistently get people to show up to engage with you, because that makes the biggest impact, instead of it just being that one time they see you and then that's it. That you have to. They want to build a relationship. I think one of the
strongest things that I remember hearing is from Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said, "Be there for them on their terms. Be there for them where they're at. Don't make them come to you. Already be where they're at, and then ask them to listen or engage and participate." And so, by being where they are initially, you're not making it a hard decision for your fans or your followers.
Right, exactly. That's so critical, is knowing where they are so you can be able to
authentically integrate. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But it makes a difference if some people would just assume that, well, my clients have to be on this one platform. Says who? Everybody has a favorite platform where they are, so you want to look at how can you show up for
and
that.
I will publish articles on LinkedIn because my clientele is on LinkedIn, but I'll publish articles on LinkedIn about how beneficial Snapchat has been for me and how I'm driving in business with Snapchat. And then I'll find a bunch of additions to my Snapchat from brand new users on Snapchat. And I know that based on the Snap score that they have. So when all of a sudden, the day that I post this article or I publish it through LinkedIn, I have 4 new users that have 0 on their Snapchat score. It leads me to believe that some of them are the viewers that have read this article and now want to see what I'm talking about. And that makes me excited to see them follow me from platform to platform. So I'll go out of my way to say hello to everyone that has added me, and personalize it. Like, hey, where did you find me from? And I just love to hear, well, I read your article. It makes me excited.
So how often are you posting articles about Snapchat on LinkedIn? I'm
not well, I don't really have any recipe to it. I think I try to post something at least every month, if not more. What's sad is that actually I was posting and publishing quite a bit more in the beginning of stages of this, but now that I'm having to try to keep up with a lot of the back end work, it leaves less time for blogging. But when things relevant are coming up, and I think that, now that we're in this big digital transformation, I love that Snapchat has been buying up all this VR technology, and nobody is really talking about it. And people are kind of, well, Instagram stories is catching up. Like, will this update make them go ahead? Well, here I am. I'm living like 5 years in the future when Snapchat is selling their channel access to these new VR gaming companies that are developing these new games. This is going to be the way that people are going to be able to play them. Like Pokemon Go with AI technology. Right. Well, they have their own app and their own tech. But for gamers and for people who are just creators, they're going to be able to sell their games right through Snapchat. And now they're doing, one-click access and so many more things. So I just think that it's really exciting. So I'll publish articles about VR tech or about, Snapchat as a whole. I tried, not to have all my articles be like, you need to use Snapchat. You can read about 1,000 of those anywhere.
Right. Even though there's, tons of articles out there, it's ultimately the network that you build up. I think that's something that people have to realize, that your story is what makes you unique in the world.
Absolutely.
And that's what people want to connect with. That's what's so powerful about platforms like Snapchat.
Yeah. And that's why I proudly say, I'm an accidental entrepreneur and I have no idea what I'm doing. Because when people who have been in my shoes follow me and they're excited and they're happy to tell me, you should do this. It'll make things easier. You should do that. And then I share that, and that's how I'm growing. And I think that it's good too that my audience knows that, my website may not be the best of the best of the best, but she just built this by herself within the last 3 weeks. So it's pretty dang good, actually. Just by being real, my audience has a real perception of where I'm at and where I'm coming from. And I think it's easier then to have your expectations defined.
Right. And that's the critical thing, is that in the beginning, everybody was experimenting. There wasn't this formula out there that says, oh, you have to do these particular things to make a website look good. Like, if you were to go back in time and look at the first websites that were being built, it was all the same process of you'd have one window open that had all the HTML code in it, then you have a browser window. You make a little change, no, that's not the right color. Let me make another little change. It was just back and forth. So some people today don't understand, like, what do you mean drag and drop is easy compared to what it used to be? Easy. So
right.
It's all a matter of what it is that you're doing, because it's a journey. Anyone who's built their own website always start off with, that one thing they look back and go, wow, that was my first one? Eh.
Right. Exactly. And I think that, there's this divide of people who are willing to try and who feel that they can't because they don't know how. And even out of the ones that are willing to try, there's another divide in that section of people who have to have it be perfect and people who just put it out there. And it's the people that put it out there that end up attracting attention and that other people learn from. And so if I can help somebody else learn along the way, or help somebody else have the courage to try something maybe they weren't going to before, well, then I feel like it's win-win-win.
Right, exactly. You bring up a valid point about just getting it out there, because you look at the world we live in and there's this pressure that you need to make everything perfect, you need to make it right, versus you just need to get it done.
Yeah.
If it's not perfect, so what?
It's okay. It really is. And as long as you're trying and you're putting yourself out there and moving forward, the only thing that you should expect in return is information on how you can get better. And that's the other thing. I think that people are not open to criticism as much as they should be. People feel judged by criticism and they feel put down, and they don't feel inspired at all. They don't take constructive criticism as a key growth term. They rather think of it as something that's holding them back.
Right.
So when people tell me things that I have done wrong, I'm like, yes, now I can fix it and do it right. Thank you so much. Rather than feeling like, oh, great, they all hate me now.
Right. Exactly. And one of those things that makes a difference in terms of criticism is that in business, you don't have to make it perfect. There's very few things where you need to make sure you get it right the first time, like brain surgery. You really don't want any mistakes there.
Yeah.
Or like skydiving. You kind of want to get that right the first time.
Yeah, but the rest of the world, it's not life or death, people. So it's okay.
Right, exactly. And that's a very valid point, is that in business, unless it's something that involves life or death, if there's a mistake, so what? You fix it and you keep going.
Exactly. That's the key right there. You keep going. A lot of people come to a mistake and they feel like, well, that's that for that. Let's go back to the regular route. And, that's why I'm so determined on building this company and growing this. It's just because I don't want to do what everybody else does, which is just take whatever job they can find because at least they have one, and work 9 to 5 the rest of their life, paycheck to paycheck, because that's what they were supposed to do.
Right, exactly. That is awesome. So, as we wrap everything up, what's one thing that people can do today to really start benefiting from using a platform like Snapchat?
Well, if they've never used Snapchat before, they can sign up for my training course at snapatwork.com, and they can learn how to use it. First perspective, of course. Gotta, do one of those shameless self-plugs in there. Otherwise, they can, use these external apps like Ghost Codes or Snap Decks, where you can find other people that are similar, that are in interest fields that you like, and start following and listening and watching their stories. Really, the first key in Snapchat is watching other people's stories. And then commenting on them. Nobody's going to know that you're there if you don't say, hey, that was really cool. Or if you don't just say, like, wow, that's such a beautiful whatever it is. I mean, just have the courage to engage. And start engaging. See what happens. It's amazing.
Right. Exactly. It makes all the difference in the world. Well, Ashely, I want to thank you for coming into the Big Movement podcast today and sharing your wisdom about how you got started and leveraging LinkedIn and ultimately scaling your business with Snapchat, which is something that so many people need to realize it is a valuable tool in business today.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's just growing, like I said, with that VR technology. So, and I swear now, it won't be long before the marketers are in there. And now that you can add advertisements in between Snap Stories based on, demographics, let's go advertising.
Right, exactly. Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.